to the Sanitation at Scale series of Toilet Board Coalition. My name is Venu Gupta. I'm the Director of Accelerator Program and Investor Relations at TBC. And with me today is David Auerbach, who is the founder of Sanergy. Sanergy is one of the pioneers of business approaches to sanitation, and they currently serve through an integrated full value chain model of sanitation. They currently serve about 125,000 people in urban slums near Nairobi. And so today we want to learn from David on his really enriching journey. It's been 10 years since he and his co-founders set up Sanergy. So we want to learn from David on what it takes to scale up a sanitation enterprises, what are the challenges, what are the pivots, and how does Sanergy as an organization grow, what lies ahead. So over to you, David. First of all, congratulations on this. I think this November you will complete 10 years of Sanergy. That's a huge achievement. And I would say that's more so because you're in the sanitation space. I know sanitation space is not exactly the friendliest when it comes to growing a business. So I think congratulations on that big achievement. Please tell us about Sanergy and your reflections on this 10-year journey.
Great, thanks, Vinu. It's a pleasure to be here today. So at Sanergy, we're working to build healthy, prosperous communities by making safe sanitation accessible and affordable for everyone. And as we looked at this challenge, we were really interested in being able to take a full value chain approach that would also incentivize participation in the value chain all along it. So like people wanting to be able to build safe toilets, people wanting to use the toilets, people wanting to be able to collect the waste, people wanting to be able to treat the waste, and there being a market for the waste that we are then converting into valuable agricultural inputs. And that was the idea from the get-go. How could we do that? And this is what we built over the last 10 years. I can quickly, maybe if helpful, I'll show you just a quick model of what we do so that you're able to see it there. This is our approach. And so what we do is apply, get that into the right form for you. So we apply a circular economy approach to deliver safe sanitation and waste management services in cities. So this starts with us building a network of sanitation facilities called Fresh Life Toilets. We serve, as you mentioned, over 125,000 people. It's about 140,000 now through a network of about 3,500 toilets, both in Nairobi and in Kisumu, where we expanded into last year, our first expansion. We collect all of the waste on a regular basis, and over the last few years have really woven in expanding this quality collection service to also include collecting of organic waste from around the city too. This has strengthened our value proposition to the cities and also ensured that we have significant volumes of waste so that we're then able to treat that into these end products. We then treat the waste, and we built one of the largest organics recycling factory in sub-Saharan Africa, which has the capacity to process about 72,000 tons of waste per day. And what we're converting the waste into is agricultural inputs. The first of these is insect-based animal feed, or insect-based proteins derived from black soldier fly larvae. So we rear a colony of flies called black soldier flies that eat organic and sanitation waste. They get big and fat off of this. We harvest it, pasteurize and dry, and the end product is about 40% protein. This protein is really nutritious and valuable for livestock, for chicken farms, for fish farms. And so we sell that on to feed millers, who then put that into their specialty mixes. The larvae leave behind a residue that's often called a frass. And what we do is then we compost that into organic fertilizer. So we then produce this nutrient-rich organic fertilizer that we're then able to sell on to farmers who are seeing increased crop yields. Organic fertilizer is really valuable because it improves the soil structure, improves its ability to retain water and nutrients and such. The other thing we do is we briquette it. So we're actually able to take this residue and turn it into a briquette called Evermoto, which we're able to sell on, first we use for our own purposes to make our factory more operationally efficient instead of buying other power sources. And secondly, we sell that on to various factories and local industry who need constant sources of fuel for things like boilers. So in this way, we're able to extract value from the waste. And all in all, this enables us to have a more efficient model that enables us to be able to provide more people with safe sanitation services.
And those are the three pictures that we see at the bottom, right? I mean, the left is the organic fertilizer, and then insect feed and the briquettes, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And through this integrated value chain model, I was reading that the cost per capita of sanitation, I think, can be lowered to 1/5 of the traditional cost. And that's a huge bonus because I think if most of the governments around the world are grappling with the costs of providing access to sanitation, and here, your value proposition is that not only access to sanitation, but the complete value chain can come at 1/5 the cost of traditional sewerage design.
That's exactly it. We are the goal is to be able to serve people living in the lowest income areas. Often they are the ones who have the hardest time to be able to cover all costs. That being said, it is a revenue generating model where we do charge landlords and entrepreneurs to have access to the sanitation network. But there is still costs that are required by the government, there's still costs that need to be paid, and we think that this can be paid by governments, by municipalities, because this is actually, as you're saying, 5 times cheaper than any other option out there. And as we saturate and go even deeper, it can get even cheaper than that. So when you're looking at that, from a effective deployment of capital for cities, it's a really, really attractive option.
And how do you convince the government? I mean, this value proposition sounds very compelling. I mean, it's a no-brainer, I would say, but I'm sure that it wouldn't have been very easy to convince the first government to buy into this. So, I mean, how was that process like?
I mean, there's a couple ways to, there's several components to this, right? First of all is being able to gain the trust of the government, and showing that you're a honest broker that is looking to be able to provide these services. And so that involves a strategy that involves us joining various task force and a lot of mechanisms that the government is developing to be able to tackle this issue. Acting too much like a renegade that's operating separate from the government from the get-go is not something that is well received. Second is focusing on the customers. Showing that residents of informal settlements value these services, and that's something that's really significant because utilities want to be able to be, they want to be seen as serving their customers. And so in Kisumu, for example, where we launched last November, the uptake has been twice what we expected. And which is to say that, a lot of entrepreneurs and landlords have been investing in this. And this is something that has been such like a really pleasant surprise to the utility, and for us too, because because it shows that there's a real value proposition there. And and as much as we're an external actor, when you have their stakeholders saying this is a great solution, this works too. And then the third part of this is actually starting to change the financing mechanisms too, right? And we have to get more creative about this. But this is working with government to ensure that that they are able to ring fence investment into low-income areas. About 2 years ago, the World Bank released a report that evaluated their own performance, and they recognized that 56% of all of their money that was intended to reach the poorest quintile was reaching the richest quintile through subsidies. And so there's there is a reckoning that and restructuring that needs to happen so that we're able to better prioritize serving low-income areas. And this is groundwork that Sanergy and its partners work on with governments to be able to come up with suitable financing mechanisms to be able to serve these residents.
I think those are excellent points, because I think your point about gaining the trust of the government, becoming more familiar with the government, not forcing them to take a huge leap of faith, but helping them make small incremental steps towards the new solution. I think that's a wonderful point. And I think showcasing some sort of customer value upfront through these new approaches, and I think it's it brings back to how relevant it is for governments to make sure that it's really translating at the ground level, some value to the customers. And on the finance side, absolutely, I think sanitation requires, very bespoke financial products. I think the sanitation is not really one of those conventional sectors. So I think it requires its own kind of set of financial tools, I think. So as you look towards this last 10 years, and you've grown to now 400 people, Sanergy has 400 people operation. Any insights on how this growth of the Sanergy organization, how this organization evolved over the last 10 years? What were the challenges? What were your vision as you set about growing this organization?
Yeah, lots. Of course. When I think back on this, I mean, there's been a couple of really key pivot points for us that I think are important, especially for entrepreneurs to understand, but also for us in terms of being able to fulfill our mission and mandate. The first is that we actually started this model just working with entrepreneurs in commercial areas. And so we basically had this great network of about 500 toilets that were in markets, and they were in the informal settlements, but they were in markets, places where there was high foot traffic, which would be good for business. And then we hit this point where we realized that there was a real constraint with the commercial one, with the entrepreneurial ones. One was that not everybody wanted to be a toilet entrepreneur. And secondly, and more importantly, these toilets still closed at night. So we were hearing a lot from tenants, from residents saying, well, these toilets are great, but at 10 p.m. I'm still, it's still stuck. And this is what and what I want is access to a toilet that is there, 24/7, I don't have to go long distances, and I know it will be clean. And so we made this pivot to focus on working with landlords rather than entrepreneurs. And immediately our network grew like tripled in size. Our monthly sales were tripling, and it was like really strong value proposition then and there. And now I think it's just over 80%, maybe 85% of our network are landlords, and therefore residential. So this means that families have that 24/7 access. Now this is something that in retrospect, I guess makes a lot of sense. I mean, this is what everybody wants, right? Is that they don't, is what I mentioned before. You don't, you want that safe, clean access to a toilet. But that was a really important pivot for us. The second one was what we just talked about, realizing how important it was to work with the government. And we actually think about this more even from a scale perspective than anything else. We have the how-to manuals on, and the SOPs and the processes on how you can actually do this. But, as we often talk about within the Toilet Board Coalition, I mean, there's over 4 billion people who don't have access to safe sanitation. Increasingly cities are where the biggest challenges are in terms of being able to serve people. So we actually need to develop models that can be replicated for cities anywhere. Not just, it can't just be, Sanergy shows up and builds that over 10 years. Like that's just, the math of that doesn't work in terms of solving this. And so so we realize, okay, we actually need to spend a lot more time working with government, developing it so you can have everything from, the right regulatory conditions to innovative or the right financing mechanisms. Service-based contracts is like the big idea that we push for, so that you can actually cut and paste the broad components of Sanergy's model into other cities too. And that's taken us on a journey that, frankly, like I didn't ever expect, right? I mean, not just dealing with like the Nairobi government or the Kisumu government, but like, dealing with, international agencies that are working with multiple governments, things like AMCAO, organizations like AMCAO, the African Ministerial Council on Water, and such. But that's really important work to be able to shift the landscape there. And then the third, I guess, is interesting on the reuse side, is like really developing the strong value proposition for our fertilizer and our end products, but the fertilizer in particular. This is something that we did. We had learned a lot that sales is very getting the right value proposition takes time, and you have to really listen to customers too. And of course, in the sanitation sector, there's this whole issue that often comes up about the safety of human waste and all of that. And we're able to prove and consistently meet all meet domestic and international standards for this. But you still have to sell the product. And one thing that we really have developed really strongly over the last couple of years is actually a network of resellers. And so people who are the ones who sell on to smallholder farms. And so we've been able to build a network now of about 250 people or shops across 20 counties in Kenya. And that's been like a much more efficient and effective sales strategy, mostly because, farmers generally buy in the same way. They like go to their farm shop and they say, okay, these are the things I need. This is the guy I trust who tells me what I should be buying. And so building that relationship has been really effective for us, and we've seen really impressive sales as a result from that.
And now it seems like the sort of integrated citywide sanitation model that you run, I think it's it's at a certain level now, can be transported to other cities and other contexts, right? And
Yeah.
so what would you say would be the next stage of evolution of Sanergy? Like what's next on the horizon, or where is
Yeah.
Sanergy headed now?
I mean, so I mean, we are moving into a replication mode. As I mentioned at the outset, we've just expanded into Kisumu, a city about 200 miles away from Nairobi on Lake Victoria. And that's like the first testing for us of how do we replicate our model. And it's going extremely well. A really receptive government, a progressive utility, a huge challenge that is actually not, I mean, they have sanitation challenges, but the bigger challenge that affects everybody is the polluting of Lake Victoria. And so there's some real political weight behind solutions that can help fix that. And so, because that will become a much greater economic engine. And so we're working out how do we best replicate there. And then from there, the goal for us is to serve about 1.5 million people over the next 5 years, across several cities in Kenya, and then international expansion too. The way to do that is, as I've been mentioning, is driving through partnerships with governments to be able for us to come in and do the implementation, but or in partnership with the utilities, but really pushing, but really putting the expectation on governments that okay, now you do have a viable solution for how you could reach enough people, your people. So let's get serious. Concurrently, the reuse operations is expanding too, and the idea is to take that to at least 10 cities over the next 5 years too.
Excellent. And so I think the day is not far when we can see multiple of these integrated Sanergy value chains extending right from access to toilet all the way to treatment and end use products. From the insect feed, organic fertilizer, briquettes, etc. I think that seems to be within grasp now, and be very interesting to see, first of all, this expansion to a different city within Kenya. But I think equally, how does this model expand to beyond the shores of Africa or beyond Kenya? And I think those are going to be really, really important milestones, I think. And these conversations, David, can go on and on. There is just so much to talk to. But I wanted to talk to you about people. How did you look at the people challenge, or how did you look at Sanergy's growth as an organization, as a team of people? I still remember when I visited the Sanergy plant, the treatment plant, and I was joined by one of your colleagues, and there was a very friendly culture. I think they were all fist bumping each other, and I think that was really
just
phenomenal
for you.
to
No,
see.
just kidding. No, just
So
kidding.
how did you sort of manage this really, really impressive people growth within Sanergy?
By prioritizing it. I think Sanergy is like quite an attractive place to come work, where there's like a really clear social mission. It's innovative, it's cutting edge too. They're doing, we're doing all these cool things with the waste, and it's really making a difference in changing Kenya, but also changing the lives of like a lot of our staff too, 2/3 of whom are from the communities that we serve. But and so we made a very conscious effort from the get-go to create a culture that that is open, that is that focuses on innovation, and that focuses on people developing professionally too. And so things that we have that may be a little bit different from like other organizations are like, I mean, there's a, we have professional, we have a coach who works with senior leadership, and making sure that people are really, senior and mid-level managers, and really thinking about how you build effective managers so that they, so that they're growing, so that everybody is growing within the organization. We work to, create like a learning environment too through a speaker series. So actually, several of the Toilet Board Coalition members have come and spoke to our team, and that's like, that seems like a small thing, but it's actually a big thing, because it's what you're asking people to take an hour from their day to just learn and reflect and think about who they could become too. And so that kind of investment has been really important. We also in Kenya have really focused on saying, thinking it's like, okay, well, I mean, the co-founders, like, we've all lived here 10 years now, and this is our home. But like, if you still want every country operation to, we still want that to be led by people from that country. And so really making sure that the management, like, that our leadership is represented, of course, it's like very like very clearly well represented by people, by Kenyans, by and such, and then also that people are, that we are ensuring that should, as Sanergy becomes global, our Kenyan operation is going to have a very strong DNA there of the local culture, and that's really important.
I think that's a great insight, and I would say that that's so important, to build and to give time and attention to the people factor in the organization. I think in the high growth phase, it's very easy to just be obsessed with your solution and the huge market that you see in front. But I think it's easy in the sort of in the high, fast-paced atmosphere of a high-growth company to miss out on this people development piece. And I think that's a wonderful insight, that spending resources, spending time on developing people for larger responsibilities, making sure that they are prepped for growth. I think that's a wonderful insight. I think, David, I can go on and on. We can talk about so many things, but I think I'm really, really grateful that you took the time out today to share your insights. The sanitation business community, as you very well know, is growing worldwide. There are Sanergy is one of the trailblazers of that community, and I think that these vast markets that we see everywhere, I think they're finally getting those kind of innovative solutions, that can not only provide customer value but also create favorable cost scenarios for governments to implement them. So it's been a pleasure to talk to you, David, and I hope that we can continue this series, and we can continue to observe Sanergy's growth into other markets, other countries.
Thanks, Venu. Yeah, no, and it's great to talk with you, and and as always, happy to talk with any members of the TBC one-on-one if there's issues or ideas or insights that they have too.
Thanks, David.